I welcome them to try. We talk at such a pace sometimes, I'm sure it would be hysterical.
And it looks like we are now switched over. Hello, everyone. Good to see you all. It is Saturday night, anime time. We're here to talk about some anime. How y'all doing?
But so far, still
all right.
alive.
Yeah, I hear that. Cool. All right, let's dig in. We have a doozy of an anime to talk about tonight. Because we're talking about Megazone 2-3 down there. And as you can kind of see in the thumbnail, it is actually spelled out Megazone 2-3. That was one of my discoveries. So let me just open it up. Anything y'all want to lead with? Because boy, do I have thoughts too.
Okay, so okay with the that's kind of stretching it. For the first part, second part, I was just kind of like, I'm so glad you said that the character designs were different because I would have been like, oh,
Yeah,
I understand. There's so much. Oh dear Lord, no, there's so much.
Oh yeah. Oops.
well, this is I think I had said to you guys, this is I think the first time all the way through with part 1, part 2, with English, either sub or dub. So I'm glad to say, again, if you've watched this, I've watched this enough over the last 30 years. Yeah. That I put together most of what the heck was going on. But no joke, I totally legitimately thought part 2 was their grandchildren.
Oh yeah.
Because it looks visually, I'm like, okay, this is no relation to
Completely
anybody from
different.
part 1.
Yeah.
At all.
Yeah.
This got to be like a century later. Like the fight has gone on for a century again, and now all these people's grandkids are picking up the mantle and moving on. Then just get, to that point, I'm like, oh wow.
All right. Well, we'll get to part 2. I definitely I have thoughts about part 2. Because part 1 is character designs by Haruhiko Mikimoto, character designer of original Macross and other famous things. This is 85, so Macross had come out only a few years earlier, so he was hot, the hotness. And boy, are these character designs very clearly Mikimoto designs. This is
Rick Hunter and Lin Min-Mei right there. That's Shogo and Yui.
Yep.
Just like, okay. Fantastic hair.
Yep. And it is also very 80s,
Yeah.
Which, spoiler mode, is actually a plot point. But yeah. So, first off, I want to talk about Shogo a bit. Because
Thanks to the jerk.
People often have problems with male anime protagonists being unlikable. Shinju.
No. Shogo?
Right. Shoujo sure doesn't help a lot. Granted, he's the sort of classic dumb teenage boy archetype. Which is, fine as far as it goes. But then we're less than 10 minutes in, and he basically steals a highly experimental military prototype, hides it with this in the garage of this girl he knows.
Random girl.
Random girl he knows.
It's not like my best childhood friend. It's like literally rando girl that he just gives a bike ride to.
Yep.
Like,
he almost ran her over and killed her, but
right.
Oh yeah, that's a good reason to trust a top secret giant vehicle thing to her garage.
Right.
Sure. She won't narc you out. You don't even know that.
Right. And then they go on with their lives.
Yeah.
And they just hang
But
out.
He dies. His
Right?
buddy dies.
Right.
In that. And he's like, oh, warn you, dies.
We have to figure out what's going on, I think. But
Yeah.
let me talk to this girl that I just got her phone number with.
Yeah. And they just, go along with things. And we get some, awesome 80s workout sequences.
Like Jane Fonda works.
Yeah, exactly, very much.
Wow.
Wow, the
One
80s were a
and
thing.
two and one and two.
And I'm trying to be very careful about skipping around in here because it is an OVA. There are certain sequences that I cannot show on YouTube. And so, like, they're just... And he's taking the motorcycle thing out on the road. Yeah. He gave it, like, a new paint job, but...
Yeah, I mean, that makes all the difference.
Right.
It's not just, like, the giant freaking machine that nobody else has a copy of. So it's not obvious in traffic.
Right, yes.
Because, he's driving down, and again, it's just kind of like, we're going to ignore the awful things that are happening.
Yeah.
You know how in anime, we're just going to ignore that. So he's driving this huge thing. I mean, the thing is, like, it takes up a lane.
Yeah.
He's already crashed a Beamer, and he has, by the way, hit and run in the first 5 minutes.
Yep.
He's just kind of like, whatever. Oh, it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Die.
Well, and the thing
and he's just driving this huge thing. I gotta tell you, if I saw something like that in Baltimore, I can tell you a lot of people would be going, "Hey, what's that?" Not just like, "Oh, I need to get to McDonald's."
Well, the thing that gets me is, Buddy introduces him to the Bahamut 6.
Right.
And you get very little explanation of what's going on.
Yeah.
But I'm just going to have to guess that Shogo is either a rocket scientist idiot kid or that this thing is designed for morons.
Yeah.
Because
yeah.
Think of Tetsuo when he gets on Kaneda's bike.
Yeah.
Right.
And he's driving, he's like, oh no, and the bike starts slowing down. He's like, oh, I didn't rev it right. And it starts, he starts to slow down. Shogo out of the gate.
He knows how to
drives this thing like a boss. He just decimates stuff. He can convert into, Garland mode. And he can use the whole sensor package. He knows the whole damn thing front to back. Even like no training.
Even Amuro.
Yeah.
Had to read the manual while he was getting page 58, pull the trigger, press that button. Shogo just gets on the bike and it's like he's an idiot savant. He just gets on there and goes, motorcycle, I know this.
Idiot, I'll agree with.
And he goes on. And he uses it for such highbrow purposes.
Okay. All right. So, yeah. So he then... I'm not going to be able to find... Well, there we go. He suspects that the girl he's hanging out with is about to... trade herself for certain obligations. And then...
That's a good way of putting it.
Beeps on her using the bike sensor through a wall into a hotel. And, I will point out, flips through multiple looks through multiple rooms. So he knows what he's doing.
How?
Right. And then finds out what it is and proceeds to literally smash through the door, or through the wall rather, and rescue her.
Boy, what a rescue!
Which again, it's just the military. It's just super secret government hardware. No one's gonna come after you. No one's gonna notice that. You're not putting her in danger. It's fine.
There were no witnesses to the thing jumping out of a parking garage, demolishing the side of a hotel.
No cameras in the parking garage. Nobody. The people next door going, "What was that? Oh, it's nothing. Don't worry about it. It's just some giant machine." Said some idiot savant is crashing through the wall because there's some girl that he picked up earlier in the day that he has actually really no relationship.
No, not at all.
and he rescues her, and you know, she's going off on the bike. She's like the first person to actually notice the bike.
Yeah,
like you know, she's like, "Oh my god, this is amazing!" Da, da, da. And his response, because you know they've been going out for all of nothing, and he turns around and he just and he does that, and I'm just like going, I suppose it's a way to win and influence people. I guess I you know,
I'm used to that application when somebody's like panicking, freaking out. You're like, settle down.
Yeah, nope.
Versus like, oh my gosh, you rescued me. I'm so happy. This is great.
This was like Sean Connery type stuff, you know.
Yeah.
I think I should a little up and give a little smack and all that.
Settle down. You're getting a little crazy. Okay.
Yeah, I don't like Shogo very much. Whereupon we go to, and this is actually kind of interesting, McDonald's. Not McDonald's. Like, I am sure that McDonald's was actually a sponsor of this OVA.
Oh, no doubt.
Oh, yes.
Well, see, there's McDonald's,
like
Lucky Strike, Heineken, Dunhill
Oh,
cigarettes.
oh.
I just felt
Part
like,
2, yeah.
you know, like by the end of it, I was just like going, I don't smoke when I'm having a Nicky fit. I need a drink, and I want to shove a hamburger in my mouth and wash it all down with a Coke.
Or an
What the hell's
Asahi.
happening?
Whereupon they got on their joyride, and we get our Tokyo 3 moment.
Yep.
And I was like, oh, that's where Eva got it. Gotcha. Giant underground city. And this is the big reveal that they're actually on a generational starship. They're actually going out. They're on the Megazone 2-3.
Yep.
And out flying. And again, you know, he gets involved in all of this military combat and is really pissed off that the military wants their own hardware back.
Their secret machine he took.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, he still hasn't figured out what has happened to his friend just yet.
Yeah.
So he doesn't know that his friend took a bullet to the head.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's just sitting there, I wonder what happened to Shinji.
Yeah.
Three
He
guys.
doesn't return. Why is he not returning my calls? I don't
Exactly. I've been leaving voicemails for like 2 days. What's going wrong?
Yeah.
Another moment in time where this big like transformation fight scene. How does Shogo know how to target anything? How to use the gun? I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Push button military. It's amazing.
It really is. It's awesome. You know, whereupon we have the villain, you know, we're not so different, you and I sequence, you know, required by law, check mark. Whereupon
BD.
Exactly.
BD, yeah, great name, BD.
BD, yeah. All right. Whereupon, again, Shogo just goes back to riding around on his bike.
Yep.
And just goes back to his regular life, and everything's fine, everything's cool, and whatever. I'm not gonna. Now he's wondering whether to tell everybody and to, you know, reveal the secret. I don't know why you would wonder that, but okay.
Yeah. Well, he did when he tried to go on Eve's show.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Right.
Had a little foreshadowing of what was going to be the path of this anytime he tried to reveal something.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, you should kind of sort of realize if something weird has happened before,
Yeah.
and now you've had your big confrontation moment, they're coming to kill you.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Any of the people you hang out with, they're also going to kill. If you really love your friends, don't get them killed.
So
right.
there was a moment where in this, and for some reason I don't know why, but I think it was the fact that BD let Shogo go, and I was like going, and he had this like BD had this internal monologue about, you know, what was to give us an idea of, like, you know, something big was bigger, a bigger picture thing was happening. And that, if for a second I thought, oh, Shogo's going to be the guy that they want to be the ace pilot of this Garland thing, or, you know, whatever. And I really thought that, and then it just, and right, a hero, and then it just kind of, And he just went away. And, and I was like, oh, okay, we're not going down that way. Where are we going with it? Why is he moody? Why is everybody moody? I don't understand. Why is everybody moody?
And to John's point, so you've learned all this. You're questioning what's going to go on. You're going to put all of your friends in danger. So how do you respond to that? What's the best thing you could possibly do in that situation? Oh, I know. Make a movie about it over the course of weeks with all of your friends.
And the bike.
And the bike!
Places.
And nobody's coming after the bike after the movie. Okay, so in real life, you need permits and things like that. So there would be a paper trail for the military, for BD, come in and find you and knock you in the skull and take your stupid bike back. But no, they're having fun, and maybe I don't know. Maybe BD was just like, oh, they're just kids. Let them have their fun before we have to deal with the apocalypse that's coming our way.
Yeah, exactly.
Let them enjoy themselves before we kill all of them.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Before we do anything with the director, by
And I do want to point out, if you notice a lot of the crowd scenes, as much as there's the cool mecha action, in a lot of crowd scenes, they cheaped some of the crowd scenes to the extreme, where it's just side-scrolling static figures, and I was like, oh, come on. That's a cheap out.
Now, in fairness, worth pointing out at this point, Megazone 2-3 was originally going to be a TV series. Right. They planned that. Things changed. They decided to make it into a movie. So they basically just condensed what they had, and I'm sure reworked a few things. So I suspect originally, by the time we got to this point, we were at episode 6. There had been other things with the military trying to find him. He had been, getting away from them. All of that had been featuring in the story, but that didn't actually get animated yet because it's expensive. So we're getting all of the sort of TV animation tricks and a lot of just the easier plot, if you will.
Which is a shame because I think that this would actually have, if it was made into an actual TV show with the TV show budget, I think this actually could have been not anything like on the level of Gundam or Macross or Robotech or anything like that, but I think this would have been something that I think people would have sunk their teeth into. I think they could have made a good story about it because there are elements of it, especially when you get into part 2, where you're just kind of like, oh, okay, well, this would have been cool if they just didn't do it this way.
Yeah.
And so the whole thing was very frustrating. But when you brought up it was supposed to be a TV series, I was just like, well, that actually explains a lot, a lot.
Yeah. The plotting in general is just kind of confusing.
Just that's a way to put it.
Just motivations, just all that stuff just doesn't really come together.
Background.
Exactly.
A little bit of background on people here.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong, like I enjoyed what I saw of the movie. I liked a lot of the pacing. I liked a lot of the scenes. I liked hanging out with the girls in their room and getting a feel for who they were, understanding all that. It kind of worked. And then of course they kill all of them at the end of part 1. And as I think I mentioned somewhere else, Shogo's all like, "Those bastards!" It's like, you couldn't see this coming, really?
Well, I like the fact that, Shogo goes off and Yui. Yui is left there, like, on the phone in the apartment where Tomomi's dead.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And, like, we don't see any cleanup. We don't see anything going on. We just see Mai being like, oh, boo-hoo-hoo, my daddy called me home. I'm leaving. Bye.
Mm-hmm.
Deal with the body.
I mean, it was like, did we just just take the curtain off the window and just throw the body and just go, we're going to pretend that lump is something else.
Get the big push broom out, just push her into the closet, shut the door. You're like, that's fine.
She'll take care of it, it's fine. And where's the police?
Mm-hmm. Well, now Brent, that you said they were going to do a TV series. It's like, there's entire, like, chunks of stuff that obviously police are called, and there's like, oh, nothing ever happened, we didn't file a police report, and you know, a bunch of other stuff that would occur in there,
conspiracy
that would flesh
stuff
out. Yeah,
yep.
And it's just like instead it's death, and we're on the phone. Bye, Mai. And now we move on.
Yep.
Like, callous disregard for your friend being murdered in your apartment.
Yeah. Now I will say, you know, a lot of the mecha animation sequences in this are really, you know, gorgeusly done.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things, one of the things a lot of people talk about, again, it's hard to scrub through this. One of the things a lot of folks love about Megazone is that mecha action animation, which is definitely, you know, up there. It is top tier mid 80s mecha animation. It's smooth, it's exciting, it's interesting. The problem is, you know, there's so much other stuff going on that all of that is just feels kind of crammed in, frankly, to the rest of the story. And again, I think if it was a TV series and everything was balanced more, it would have fit better.
Well, the whole cracking, you know, getting past level 6, then moving on to level 7, and trying to crack that to break, you know, the Eve system apart so that they could get on with their development. They where in the heck does the Bahamut 6 come into any of that? It's their latest gizmo toy, but it's like they sort of indicate that that's like a key component thing that they need.
Yeah.
And yet at the same time, it's not a key component because
right.
they crack level 7.
Yeah.
Well, and it's just like, it's like if you had a TV series, it might explain what the hell's going on.
Because it seemed like it was like two competing like things that were going on. Like they wanted to crack Eve and take over. Well, obviously they wanted to crack Eve so they could take over the ship.
Right.
But at the same time, they were trying to fight off the other ship, as we find out. You know, the enemy,
the Dassault or whatever they are.
Right. And you know, and it just seemed like they were at odds with each other. And BD, but it's just, you know, he's trying to do both of these things at the same time. And you know, I just love how he just orders the computer programs. It needs to be done in 3 hours, or we're screwed. And it's just like, you know, I don't know.
Okay.
The programmer just went, okay. You know, and it just seemed like competing interests, because I would think with like, okay, if you're going to war with this other ship, right? Okay, you don't need to worry about Eve at this point. Maybe Eve might actually help you.
Yeah, it's sort of
have we figured out
to deal with
this, right? You know, and so I just don't understand why they were doing that. And then, as you point out, Garland has nothing to do with Eve, except for in part 2 when it serves only as a cell phone for Shogo to get the message from Eve. Hey, come on in. After 6 freaking months.
Yep.
You know, like I've been trying to call you, but you know, where's the Garland? I broke it. It's in the elevator shaft somewhere.
Yeah, I just leave it smashed in a hole and then wander off. Like,
I was concussed. I wasn't really thinking.
Yeah.
Well, and BD was clearly meant to be the pilot villain, right? He was the Char of the show. He was going to be the one that, you know, he was fighting with. And then I think it became clear, you know, again, just through plotting, you didn't really have space for another villain. So he becomes, you know, he becomes the bad guy.
Yeah.
And he doesn't have the personality for that. He's just not interesting in and of himself. He's interesting as this sort of, and you can certainly do some interesting parallels, right? He's kind of Shogo if he had gone to the military, potentially. He is, you know, you can do all that fun stuff. But now that he's suddenly the commander of everything, you're like, well, wait, why are you doing that? And
why do you want Shogo to? Okay, so here's the thing with BD and this and you know, the idiot savant Shogo. So Shogo is just, you know, he knows how to do the bike thing because it's just whatever, and
he can push buttons.
He can push buttons. He's an intelligent monkey. What can I say?
Yeah,
exactly. And he gets on the bike. He's able to do all this stuff, and for like for both parts, for the better part of the first movie, he's able to just get away, fool everybody, wipe the floor with people.
Yeah.
And BD, seems like these like this, like there's gonna be this big climatic battle scene, where he does the Rambo thing and Shogo puts on the whatever it says on there, and he gets his butt whooped.
Oh yeah.
BD is just like going, I've got an invasion going on. I'm trying to deal with Eve over here, and for some reason I'm obsessed with you. We can't have guns in here, but I'm inside of Eve computer. But we'll have this giant 3-story tall lightsaber battle.
Yeah,
and I'm just gonna backhand you like you're Amaro, and then continue with this invasion that's going on. And then at the end, you're just like going, well, what's the point of all that?
Yeah.
There's no clue. I mean, seriously, in that scene, he just gets his butt handed to him, and I love, the old, I'm going to use whatever I find to get myself out of this.
BD could at that moment, Shogo is like completely floored. You know what I mean? There's like he is not getting back up from this. These are down for the count. Bahamut 6 was so important to these people,
right?
And yet. Now, BD's done the thing. He has beaten Shogo. It is time to be like, okay, if I'm not going to kill you, I'm going to pop you out of that thing, and I'm going to take that back to the research boys and say, we got it back. And leave Shogo on the express elevator to the roof. Nope. He just throws him in the shaft and is like, I did the thing. And like, dude, you wanted that. Get that.
You made a big point of being 50 years behind technologically. And this was supposed to be your stopgap or your bridge to that. And it's just like, I'm not going down there to grab it.
Exactly.
Nuts to that.
No. Why should I do that?
I kicked a little brat's ass, so I'm just going to keep on going here.
And here's the problem. One of the many problems. Part 1 ends with this big epic scene of Shogo, walking and feeling frustrated and then moving on his own power. He has clearly, grasped the shonen will to live and is powering through his pain. He has not earned that in any way, shape, or form.
No.
So I'm watching that thinking, just fall down. It's fine. Just bleed out on the street. I'm okay.
Well, did you notice the fact that he comes up like out of some random hole in the ground, and he appears on the street, the busy Tokyo street. The street teeming with people and teeming with cars and all kinds of activity. Oh,
yep.
It's just like around. I'm sorry, when I'm walking down the street and I see someone bleeding from their face and using a thing, and they're just like literally just dragging their like useless leg behind them, and it's hanging by like maybe a ligament, and he'll be okay. He just needs a big fight. Yeah, it's
no worries.
But in how many other given shows do you have somebody come by and be like, "I Shobu,"
Exactly.
Fine. Don't worry about the leg.
Then you have the impression as he goes through the montage, then you're just like, oh, he's going to go back to Yui.
Right.
And then we get part 2.
So, then we get part 2. All right.
Yes,
okay.
we do.
So, part 2 was one of the most schizophrenic experiences I've had watching anime. For several reasons. One of them being the fact that it has not only a completely different director, they got a completely different character designer to redesign all the characters. And when I say redesign all the characters, I mean they went with, there's Silverhawks, we'll get back to that.
I knew I was in a bad way.
You missed Glam and Dump. Like, wow, we really worked out the 1980s name. Glam.
So they got.
That's such a terrible shot. Sweat rivulet running down his head and the hair. Like, oh.
So they got, They got Nobuo Uematsu, who I'm sorry, not Nobuo Uematsu. That's the wrong Uematsu. Sorry. They got the character designer who go on to do Mezzoforte and Kite, who is very well known for having a very distinctive art style, which does not match the original at all. That's BD there.
And that's Yui. Like, flashed by Yui. Could you even possibly have just started this off to, like, sort of make the sort of incongruity of the whole thing and be like, oh, they changed their image entirely to hide from the something. They had plastic surgery and now they all look fantastic.
Yeah. Nope.
What?
Honest to God, it makes the grandchildren seem right.
It does.
It really does. It's
Absolutely.
Just like, because well, first of all, when I saw the Silverhawks, then Lion-O and whatnot, and I was just like, oh no, oh dear God, no.
More product.
And yeah, right. And I was just like, going pinball machines. All right, that's even better. That's just. And then we have the Air Force guy from whatever. What was that game? 80s game, combat.
Contra?
Mortal Kombat,
Street Fighter,
like that. Street Fighter, yeah. So like, because the one guy from the great gang called Trash, the leader of Trash, looked like the Air Force guy from one of those games.
I think his name was Lightning. I think that was what his name.
Yeah.
Was. Lightning Glam.
It's It's
Shogo and Yui.
Yeah,
and
it's
and all the rest.
Mm-hmm.
Cyndi Lauper, the emo girl. I don't remember what her name was. Not Naya or whatever it was. I don't remember.
Yeah.
Cyndi Lauper with the Annie Potts voice from Ghostbusters. I couldn't listen to her talk without dying.
That was just hilarious.
Oh, I must not have listened to that dub.
Oh,
that dub was awful.
Mm.
Oh, you could switch the language on there.
Yeah.
But, I listened to the English dub, and I was just kind of like, just should have listened to the Japanese dub. Because they were just like going, right, totally right. Oh, that's so cool. Look what we did, and then there's the huge, bike scene. Bike gang versus the police, and which I maybe I'm just jaded, but I think the police would have just said, "Hey, witnesses."
Yeah, exactly.
Open up.
There would have been a lot more shooting from the police. But.
Well,
and so
Japanese police
the
don't have
biker
guns.
Gang wins, and Jogo at the end of it, he's sitting on his bike, and he yells triumphantly, "Score!"
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's not a Braveheart moment. Okay,
and here's the thing, like again, what are they trying to accomplish?
Right.
Mayhem.
Given everything that's going on, it just feels like a really odd choice.
But it features all of the characters.
It does.
Laid out in panoramic view, in crisp animation that you can go, oh look. They're a fantastically stylish biker gang.
Mm-hmm.
One of them looked like the big guy reminded me of a deranged-looking John Candy, honestly.
Okay.
Sort of.
I gotta say, 3 years after this, there was another anime work to prominently feature Motorcycle Mayhem. And there's really, and there, I again, full credit, I think they may have pulled some of their influence from this movie. It feels very close.
Like the clown boss who looks like a giant dude.
Right.
Yep.
And again, to be clear, the Akira manga had been going on for a while. I'm sure, I'm not saying that they cribbed it, but it does look like they, Megazone 2-3 comes out and they're like, oh, that's how to get that across. Let's use that as a basis point. With a bunch of characters you don't care about.
Dial it away from the horrible 1980s thing.
Yeah. Well, then you get all the... Okay. So, the other problem here is characters.
Amongst many.
Yeah, amongst many. They jump to part 2. Shogo... so we have two things going on. There's the enemy, which now has metal tentacle monsters, basically, technology.
That was actually the only decent part of this whole thing, but as gross as it was.
Which I will spare you the visuals because they are grotesque. But basically, they can get in and infect your ship and cause tentacles to come out, metal tentacles to come out and destroy you. Which, by the way, when I saw that, I was like, oh, well, you're done. Like, you can't shoot that away. They've won.
Except for I love the giant ship is called the FX.
Yeah.
Like FX something or other, and it's like, oh, am I supposed to understand that this is special? It's special FX. Oh,
yeah.
I got that there.
Nice.
But they have the Gowlock, or whatever they are, whatever the heck the enemy's name is. Desalk. The Desalk ship flies in front of the bridge, and then you see this little shield thing, and they're like, oh, the repulsor worked. And it's like, where the hell was that when the other ships were getting completely, totally destroyed? Like, their little Desalk ships are landing on them and blowing their pilots apart. It's like, why did you turn that on? Is this like a thing that you don't turn on for everybody?
Yeah.
Well, we were really curious about the cable tentacle things because they seem to go after eyeballs and brains.
Yeah.
We're just trying to figure that one out.
So, and I love the follow up where BD's watching the black box video.
Yeah.
And the black box camera follows everything exactly like you just saw it like a few minutes ago. I'm like,
a different hue.
I think that's how black boxes work like that.
Yeah. And also torture porn. Turns out, so this is directed by Ichiro Itano, legendary anime director known for the Itano Circus, the missile effect you've seen. And he's directed a few things, Gantz, if you've heard of that. Apparently, and so the mecha animation of this is gorgeous. All of that is just flawless work. He always wanted to, he worked on Gundam and Ideon, a lot of those Tomino series. This is what he wanted to do in those TV shows. He wanted to show grotesque death in those movies because he said that's what war is like, and we should portray that in things. And the apparently TV station said no.
Well, you see, we have these 9-year-old kids, and we don't really want them to have nightmares of seeing their eyeballs just wall as the cabin of their their little mecha
explodes.
And in fairness, like they do that in Macross briefly. They do it in Ideon in the movies. Ideon movies, but this very much. Okay. Tangent. Moving back. The problem is, it feels like Itano wanted to do this, and so he does it over and over again, and it's almost like he's letting it out. And so the sequence just goes on and on of people getting mutilated over and over. And it just feels, like too much. And then, as you say, John, and then 3 minutes later, let's watch it all again! It's like, oh.
It's almost like look what I did. See how good that is? Look how that happened. See how all this laid out? You really should appreciate what I've done here. Yes, we got you.
Can you just see the animators doing this? So watching the storyboards, like looking at the storyboards and going, okay, so we're going to draw... Oh no. Oh. Honey, what'd you do today? Drew somebody's eyeball coming out of their heads.
Rabbits. I was drawing rabbits.
That's what I kept telling myself. It was rabbits.
And then our biker gang, along with Cyndi Lauper, go out, and then you have the whole Yui plot line where she's learning to ride a bike.
Yeah.
So that she could ride a bike later on. Okay, great. That was useful.
Well, and it's again, she's another slightly idiot savant because she's just learning to ride the bike within like an hour, and let's just strap some grenades to the gas tank and fire a machine gun and a rocket launcher from the back of that bike.
And they explicitly say it's been 3 days since she first learned to ride a bike. When they go out on that race.
Pilot effectively.
They really wanted to see a lie. There was a moment when I realized the ridiculousness of what I was watching at that point. Mm-hmm. I really wanted a Pee Wee Herman moment. She just guns it and just hits the wall.
That would have been funny.
Absolutely. And that's the weird thing, is that this is such an odd story. It's such an odd set of things going on. And it's treated so seriously. You know, they really think you're going to care about this random biker gang that's smoking Lucky Strikes and drinking Asahi beer and Budweiser and drinking Coca-Cola.
And Heineken.
Thank you.
And Dunhill cigarettes.
And, you know, right on the packages, all that. I mean, corporate sponsorship was very clear.
Oh, yeah. And they're apparently, because the little round glasses, red spiky haircut,
right. Mm-hmm.
They apparently are also encryption crackers.
Yep. Super
and
hackers,
wiretapping, eavesdropping, super like techno people.
If there's one thing I've learned from 80s movies, it's that every motorcycle gang has a super hacker in it.
Apparently.
You know? It's just, it's how
Job
it works.
requirement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then we finally meet Eve. Where Eve apparently can bring people back from the dead.
Yep. Mm-hmm. The fully functional med bay in something that is the computer core of a freaking giant computer. But there's just conveniently a medical bed.
Yeah!
It's like when they were putting
thought of everything.
Pretty much.
Truly, they were putting this together. Okay, we're going to make this super AI that's going to take care of these multi-generational, you know, while the Earth is healing, we're going to do this. Isn't this the AI core? Yeah. Why are we putting a med bed in here?
Mm-hmm.
Just in case.
What if one of us trips and hits our head?
Right, exactly.
Yeah. There you go. Good enough for me. Let's put that med bed in.
There's a lot of tubes and wires and things in here. Very dangerous. Put that med bed in, and that way we'll all be safe.
It's an OSHA requirement.
Right, there we go. Yeah. Of course. And then Eve decides she's not just going to explain what's going on. She's going to go through this whole montage sequence. And it's just... Who designed you? Like, why was this the most efficient method of communication?
And how is Eve in the tube talking to Shogo,
mm-hmm.
and then lights out,
mm-hmm.
out of the tube, and somehow there's nothing in this room.
Yeah.
Nothing in this room. She creates a table that Shogo can hit.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, why?
And
how is she manipulating matter like this?
OSHA.
OSHA. OSHA required table to go to med bed.
But you know, and why I was Shogo the chosen one.
That's honestly. The thing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And you know, she's asking him, well, don't you want to grow up? And he goes on this whole litany of things of why he wants to be a freaking man-child.
Yeah.
At that point, if I was the Eve trying to figure out whether or not to save these people, I would have been like, oh, well, you clearly did not give me a good reason.
Yeah. Exactly.
Off into space you all go. There you go. Enjoy the cold vacuum.
That's the thing, is that this whole sequence goes along, and I'm like, there's nothing heroic going on here. There's nothing to make me care about this character. And it just goes on for 9,000 hours.
It's nice dancing.
It's nice dancing, absolutely. And then, okay, so more fights, more stuff. BD gets his head blown off.
Yeah.
Which, again, thank you, Anticlimax. it just the plot just kind of stops. Whereupon we get our big sort of apocalyptic ending.
Our Daikon 4 ending.
Exactly, very much. Our Daikon 4 ending. And one of the frustrating things here is that, and maybe I just completely missed this, but I don't know what the Megazone 2-3 looks like. So they kept cutting.
Very confusing.
So they kept cutting to external shots of things happening and stuff going on. I was like, well, are they in danger, or is that I don't know. Clearly,
the only indication you have is like the spaceport is sitting in the crater of like a brown lump.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna guess that's what Megazone must look like on the exterior. It must look like just a giant asteroid.
Yeah.
And the Desalk, their ship, is like some kind of crazy liquid metal wacky land.
Yeah, pretty much.
Man.
But it's apparently allergic to rainbows.
Yeah,
because at the end
I guess
it goes all rainbow. Like, why did they do that?
It's very odd.
It was very confusing, and I was just like going, okay, so everyone gets into this like pod, and things are blowing up, and Adam, we never see Adam, we just see this like big, icon Adam. And he's just, wiping the floor with everybody. And somehow Eve is able to protect them because Shogo learns his lessons to want to be the people he respected as adults, I guess. And so then, so everyone is in the pod, I guess.
Yeah.
Is shot out, and then it shows the pod going towards Earth, and I was like, no, that's Tatooine. It looked totally like Star Wars at that point when R2D2 and C-3PO, right? And I was just like going, why?
Well, we never learn who gets actually selected.
Yeah.
Because that pod, while it's big, we got to watch when the Atom program activates and the moon weapon system starts destroying both ships. We see people who are in traffic trying to get to shelters.
Yeah.
And they're all dying. So it's just like, so are you telling me the biker gangs who attacked the Central Core, they're the only people who made this?
The inheritors, the inheritors of the Earth are totally bad dudes.
So
the motorcycles
and also genetically not varied enough to repopulate the planet without horrible mutation problems.
And no survival skills whatsoever. What are they going to do? Eat bark?
What a beautiful planet! Can I get a ham sandwich? where do we get
Shogo, you used to work at McDonald's. Whip us some food.
There we go.
Hey, where's our Budweiser? Oh, crap.
Is there a gas station around here we can fill up the bikes?
No more Lucky Strikes. What do you mean that was the last cigarette?
This is what frustrated me, is that, the movie ends, and for some reason I can't move around here. The movie ends, and I'm like, so these people inherit the Earth. This is humanity from now on. This biker gang that decided to drive directly into a giant, police barricade and get themselves killed. Not the soldiers who were trying to protect the Megazone, who were... I can't figure out in what way the soldiers as a group were evil.
They overthrew the government. So that was it.
Sure.
Well, you'd think after you defended the Megazone, you could work out the nitty-gritty? The highly advanced other society that was going to use tentacle monsters to kill everybody. If the military could have handled that, then maybe afterwards you guys could have a general election.
Maybe.
Just saying.
It was. I think it had to do with Shogo's the whole diatribe about how adults screw up the world.
They lie.
And it's just like
unlike
because
Shogo.
You're doing so much better with your biker gang that gets drunk and plays Thundercat pinball, and you become the inheritors of the Earth.
By the way, soldiers who lie. What did you do for the first 20 minutes of part 1? Just saying. Yeah.
It would also have been nice, with the whole level 7 operator thing when Eve shows the little, the societies, they had to leave Earth and these city ships, and they split apart, and now the trajectories brought them back together. It's like, they had that moment where it's like, they're people like us. It's like, and? Did you try talking to them?
Yeah!
Like, instead of shooting at people, have you opened a dialogue? They're people too. If you guys are coming back towards the Earth, how about this? It's a big planet. The planet's healed. You can all settle on either side of the place.
Yeah.
It's going to take a long time before you meet up or even communicate again. So, but no. Cataclysmic fighting. Good. That's the solution. But mankind has learned its lesson from the disastrous war that apparently destroyed Earth. Like, great.
So, my whole thing about Megazone 23, the actual Megazone itself, is, basically encapsulated Tokyo, whatever. And it's, they'd explain how they're stuck in the 80s because that was when the most peaceful time on Earth.
Yeah.
What? Ignore that.
And in fairness, for the Japanese, maybe. If you're creating a Japanese arcology, all right, fine. But yeah.
Okay.
Let me tell you something. If the big ship was encountering another ship and with these horrible tentacle things that seem to go into your brain and out your eyes, and that's what you're fighting against, and then you're going up the moon, which is weaponized, called Adam, and he decides you don't deserve to live.
Yeah.
I would have, if I was BD, I would have gotten to the control bridge of that whole thing and just said, nope, let's turn around. Let's go around. We got a city we're happy with. Things are going okay. We've been peaceful for about 500 years. We got food. We've got water. We got all this stuff. We even got an 80s pop idol.
Yeah.
Hey, exactly.
That makes everybody happy.
Why don't we just go away? Let's just forget about all this and just go away. Because I can't even fathom the fact that this little runt Shogo and his biker gang, who should have really named themselves the Thundercats instead of trash, are going to be the inheritors of the Earth. I know I'm harping on this.
Well, the gang is named after the qualities of Shogo's character.
Exactly. I just would have turned that puppy around. It just went like, okay, and BD has already killed enough people to keep the whole thing secret, and I've been, hey Shogo, come here, you did a great job.
And this is the thing, is that
done.
Yeah, again, if this had been all explained out, I'm sure that was all in the backstory somewhere. But it's just not.
It's just
and where is BD going with his loyal men?
To fight them.
Just there's nothing to fight.
Imagine what I just said.
He just flies off. I don't.
I love how
those things are probably rated to descend, so you're stuck out there, and there's nothing out there. So
I love how he says
a heroic death.
I love how he says we're probably not going to meet again, and then they blast off, and I'm going to go he has that whole speech of we're the old way and we know nothing better. Look, dude, you have an entire metropolis. Just turn around and go away. That's all you got to do. That's all you got to do.
Well, and this is
and meanwhile, we learned how useless the Garland is.
Well, and this is the thing, is that I'm sitting here and thinking, okay, you're on, again, you're the military, you're on a generational starship, you're the only defense of the generational starship, other than Eve, which is this mysterious thing that for some reason no one left the user manual for. Yeah. And so you're sitting there, you get attacked by these advanced military ships 50 years ahead of you, and so you were being unacceptably terrible people by developing higher advanced technology to fight those off and not tell the peaceful people about all of this, who, by the way, were supposed to be peaceful because you agreed with Eve doing what Eve did. And then, the government's trying to keep this a secret from everybody, which, arguable, but whatever. And then our protagonist hates them for no reason I can tell. It's like, and then, Eve is basically like, oh, no, don't fight these people. And it's like, well, they're trying to kill us. Like, I'd love to not fight them, but they have horrible tentacle things. I don't see how the soldiers were doing things that made no sense. And this is, I would have loved to see that version of Megazone 2-3, where Shogo is pulled into this thing, and the soldiers are like, "This sucks. Like, this is a really tough situation. We're doing the best we can. Eve is this weird mystery. If you can make that work, great. But we're rocking a hard place. What do we do?" But no, they're the evil villains because adults.
I mean, that's what I was saying earlier, is that there's enough here that I wish they did make it a TV series, because so much could explain. It actually would have been neat to draw into, and there would have been interesting character backstories. There would have been like the two friends who wind up joining the military. You see them do it in line and doing an interview and saying something stupid, and then off they go, and you know that they're dead by tentacle, right? Yeah. Death by tentacle.
But we never see them again.
Oh,
it's like if it had been
a
TV series, you could have had a nice little segue into there about their struggles. Maybe, they're put upon and they somehow communicate to Shogo, which fuels his fury. Something.
Yeah.
And then there's that weird conceptual idea of the military arms, the arm manufacturing of the military, and they're just like, ha ha ha, we're gonna make all this money because of this war, ha ha ha. And then there's nothing else, and you're just like going, how's it not going my mic? And you're just like,
you go, throw the mic out the window. What's wrong with you?
I can't do it anymore. But they just, it's just like, okay, do we hate the adults because of the military? Do we hate the adults because they're taking money, even though they know that they're... See, and that was the other part, is that they knew that they were losing the war. Yeah. And they're like, so we'll work out in the end. We'll make some type of peace on our own, and we'll still make money. And it's just like going, no, that's not how war works. That's ask the losing side of any war. That's not how it works.
Yeah. It's a shame. I actually just finished watching Toshio Okada's video on Grave of the Fireflies, which is a whole nother thing. But he talks about how some creators create a lot of complexity that's obvious on the surface, and other creators create things that are where they leave so much for the audience to understand, and for the audience to, or not to understand, but to sort of scrape out of clues that the audience thinks it's dumb and ridiculous, or they don't see any of the subtlety, rather. I think Megazone 2-3 is kind of like that, where there's clearly stuff going on, there's clearly plot, and I'm sure if you're just watching this and you're just accepting it and absorbing it, it's fine. It's kind of standard tropes. But I just wish that some of that stuff was either more on the surface, or they had tried to be a little more subtle and not just done, biker gang attacks for 20 minutes.
Right.
It's a shame.
Again, having watched this, I've got the VHS copy down.
Nice.
So I rummaged around and found it.
Yeah.
From the days of dealer tables and eons ago, where you just didn't ask questions; it was available.
Yep.
You can piece together the story better, not understanding anything that's going on.
Yeah.
Than you actually can with an explanation of what's going on, because the explanations don't explain anything. And if you just sort of infer from the activity going on, then it's like, okay, it makes much more sense. So, part one, the parents have this thing. They discover this great mystery, and they're being lied to and deceived, and there's disaster looming on the horizon. Part two, the grandkids inherit this angry fury at being deceived and put upon by this, pop idol that they love and revere for some reason, even though it's deceiving them. And here comes the disaster, and they're the only ones pure of spirit, pure of heart, and full on friendship, and they survive. That's a great plot.
Yep.
And then they ruin it by having actual talking and telling.
sex wax inherits the earth.
Yeah, Dr. John. Wait a minute. Way to go with that. Like Kaneda's jacket.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the little pill.
Very much so.
Good for health, bad for education.
Hey, there we are. Yeah, it's really frustrating.
Yeah.
And again, gorgeous animation. This is mech animation, all that kind of stuff. Just more of that, please.
Yeah.
And definitely
I like the hint at the end that there's a road.
That's true. Yeah.
Okay, there's a road. There looks like there's some structural remnants,
Mm-hmm.
but that road, in one scene as they sweep, leads to a bridge. It's like, okay, yeah, you can have a road 500 years later. It's just going to be pot-marked bits and pieces of concrete.
Yeah.
But you're not going to get a bridge over things standing for 500 years. So something's going on.
Yep.
And we don't know.
Yeah. Never mind. Yeah. So yeah.
Okay.
So it's weird, and it's also hard for me because Megazone 2-3 is such a beloved, such a storied OVA, and partly because it was only available through VHS trading and dealers' rooms and so forth. And then finally, this was released by I think ADV back in the day. Or not even back in the day, fairly recently. And it's tough because I really didn't like it. I just didn't like it. I like parts of it, but it was just really, really rough. Partly because Spirit Koita in the chat room is pointing out that talking about media control and things along those lines. And I agree it does touch on that. The problem is because it doesn't really explore that theme.
Yeah.
It's just kind of this plot point. It doesn't really leave me with much to think about. Because there's really nothing that happens as a result of it. It doesn't really have the consequences.
Well, Shogo tries once. He tries once to get on Eve's show, and he's like, look, here's the... and it's like, okay, so that would have been a perfect point. To be like, yeah, fully control the media, this is what's this... But it's like, no, it just sort of moves along.
Yeah.
Goes and sees the computer doing the thing, and then just things move along.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, and?
Yeah.
Right.
Anyway, but yes, that is Megazone 2-3. It's definitely an interesting experience.
Again, you dial that clock back, and it was fantastic to see something of that nature.
No question.
And certainly part one, having watched Robotech, and then seen the Robotech characters, the Macross characters in part one, I was like, oh, it's got to be something like along the same arc. I'm like, nope. No, it is not.
Not quite. Yeah.
Part two's got to be more goodness.
No. Yeah. That's a hard no.
More tentacles, but not more plot.
It had so much. It just had a lot of promise. I could see that it could have been it could have been really something and here's the other part of it is I usually you can see people cosplay elements or make models or costumes around suits and things like that. I've seen nothing from Megazone. Until you guys introduced this to me, I knew nothing about it. Zip, nada.
Yeah.
And so it just has no impact just because the potential was, I feel, wasted. And while there was a gorgeous animation for the mecha, that was definitely true. And for the apocalyptic scene at the end when the Eve ship is falling apart and all that kind of stuff where they ramped up the frames per second, I thought that was amazing. But all the rest of it, I was just like, I'm out of whiskey, and I don't know how else to cope with this thing. And it's just, it was just this very. It's not often that I come across something. I don't hate it, by the way.
Yeah.
Just for everybody out there, there's nothing to hate about this. It's just very disappointing. I think is what the word.
Well, and I think something is collectively out there in the ether. because within the last 6 months, I've seen Garland figures show up from Megazone.
Interesting.
Now, mind you, they are ridiculously expensive.
Sure.
But, you know what I mean? That's one of those things you just, Valkyries, you see, all, Macross-related stuff, all the different series of Macross, all the different, mecha from that. And it's like, over all the years, I've never seen a Garland, and all of a sudden, this thing pops up. And piece they have is articulated Shogo that the back opens up, and you can put it. It's fantastic. If I can afford it, I'd get it. But it's the only time I've ever seen mecha from that show up.
And
so
granted,
somewhere it's coming around.
The soundtrack is definitely a classic. I've seen it collected on various albums, and it's also tough because it's the mecha in Megazone are, by modern standards, generic '80s mecha. I don't mean that in a negative sense. It's just they're very much of a piece with that period. So I think if I'm flipping through a magazine and if I stumbled across those mecha designs, I just flip right past it. It wouldn't be obviously, oh, what is this? Oh, Megazone 2-3. So I think that doesn't help it either.
Yeah.
Well, you had Genesis Climber has the armored bikes.
Yeah.
It does basically the same kind of thing, although it's much more man portable than certainly the Bahamut 6. But it's that in the 80s, the transforming bike in conjunction with transforming aircraft or helicopters or any other things. That was a popular thing to do. And yeah, you're right. I mean, the armored bike transforming into a fighting suit, it would be hard to distinguish necessarily between that and the Garland.
Yeah. And I also suspect Megazone is one of those things where it was probably because, let me see here, because Mospedo was 82, 83, something like that. And I do feel like Megazone probably pioneered some of the mecha designs in this and pioneered some of the visual aspects of this. And then became aped so much that now we look back and we're like, oh, it's just that. Where at the time it was just, oh my gosh, look at how gorgeous all this looks. So history. Right? History does weird things.
There's a lot of things seeded by other things.
Yeah.
That we've seen going through our movies.
There we go.
Inspirations, little bits and pieces here and there.
Yeah.
Just good. I mean, this is great. This is what makes the medium so entertaining, is to familiar things and then see people reinvent them. Hopefully better. Sometimes not so much.
Yeah.
Hopefully better.
Well, I've been thinking a lot about Macross Plus recently, and that feels like something that very much, pulled from this in terms of, mysterious digital singer and a big apocalyptic ending and all that kind of stuff. I'm like, oh, I see where they're kind of coming with some of that stuff.
Yeah. Interesting. I got to be honest. I would, if they were to actually, and this kind of, I'm actually a little bit hopeful of this idea, and it just popped in my head, John, when you were talking about how you started seeing Garlands. What if they decide to either reboot the series? I think I would watch it if they were able to, if they would, make it properly.
Yeah.
And make it a television series and not a movie, and no part 4 for the love of God, no, please don't. Just reboot the series. I think I would watch that.
Totally.
I think I would watch that. I think I really would, because I think that nowadays there is the time, the budgets, places to be able to do that.
To fill in all the parts that we need.
Yeah.
Oh, and
and talk about character design. Redesign Shogo's personality.
Yeah. Hey.
Yeah.
Well, and if you're a fan of mecha, particularly mecha animation, I would recommend this to you. I think you'll have a fun time with it. It is very enjoyable just purely as this sort of one-off mecha thing. There are other issues, as we've mentioned, with it, but they're sort of, separate from the whole mecha aspect of it.
And Genesis Climber was October 83 to March 84.
Okay. Gotcha. So, just before.
Yeah. So it's all sort of swimming around in that stratosphere there.
Yeah. I'd be curious to see what the first, motorcycle mecha is. first.
Kino's Journey? No.
I don't think so.
Not motorcycle mecha necessarily.
Yeah. And of course, Google is not being very helpful. Anyway.
Naturally.
Yeah. Anyway, that is that for Megazone 2-3. Thank you all for watching. We're not done yet, though. We're going to take a quick break and then come back and talk a little bit about anime news and such. I have a giveaway for folks in the chat, so hang around in the chat. And we'll be back in just a few minutes with that. See you in a few.
See you in a bit.
All right, pushing this over. I'll be right back.
And you're going to go through the chat when we get back? Bio break. just noticing that Duke Togo 13 said he recently watched Arcadia of My Youth and can't wait to watch our review.
And hello, everyone. We are back. I'll talk to the chat a little bit here while the other guys are on a bit of a break, enjoying their various pleasures and libations. Whatever Phantom Zone they're all in, enjoying themselves. We could talk a little bit. Wanted to scroll back through chat. I'm trying to be better about that. See what folks are talking about. Hey, N-Man, good to see you. Duke Togo 13. Glad to hear. Thank you for your interest in our review of Arcadia of My Youth. Yeah, we had a lot of stuff to talk about with Arcadia. That is an experience, man. You first saw Robot Carnival back in '97, and man, wow, that's about when I first saw Robot Carnival, I think, as well. That is a film that's grown on me personally. Duke Togo, you're talking about that as well. I was very selective. There were only a few segments of Robot Carnival I liked, but the more time I spent with it, the more I came to appreciate the various segments. Obviously, some I still love more than others, but I have a lot more appreciation, I think, for what they were doing in Robot Carnival. Yeah, we'll see if Robot Carnival makes the cut. Actually, it's kind of hard because it's a fairly obscure work. All things considered, it came over to America and hit fairly big on the Sci-Fi Channel. But as far as I know, not a huge thing. Yeah, Amazon Prime. So whoever works at Amazon Prime on their anime selections, they're aware. They have an eye for anime. Obviously, they can't license everything. But I've been quite impressed with what I've seen on that. And back when they were licensing anime, like as it was coming out, their selections were really interesting. They did Recreators, a couple other things that were really interesting anime. So I really like that stuff. I've got a lot of fun stuff on there. Let's see here, just scrolling back up. Others folks about or thoughts or questions about there. I do agree that I think mecha is poised for maybe not a comeback, but something of a resurgence. It's just the kind of genre that I think is, it has that nostalgic factor especially for the Japanese audience. I think seeing all the stuff with the life-size Gundam is helping a lot as well. I think it's going to kind of really go somewhere. Speaking of Gundam, I have a giveaway for you all. I'm going to give something away to somebody in the chat room. I have here a copy of Mobile Suit Gundam Thunderbolt December Sky, a collection of Mobile Suit Gundam Thunderbolt, the episodes. It includes a little paper slipcase. Lovely cardboard glossy slipcover, and then the actual Blu-ray. This is a Blu-ray, FYI, of Gundam Thunderbolt December Sky, with some background art, and you can see you got the disc and the booklet in there. You may have noticed that there is a whole lot of Japanese on here, because this is a Japanese release. One of the cool things about Gundam is that they release stuff with subtitles. And I think the dub is on here as well. So this is the actual, Japanese release, but it is a full Blu-ray version with subtitles in all the languages. And when I say all the languages, I mean they typically release this in, in fact, they say it down here. Let me see if I can read it. It's in tiny, tiny letters. I'm not going to be able to read that. Nope. They typically do it in, English, French, Spanish, Portuguese, German, Italian, and Chinese, I think. So this will be free to somebody, and we're going to do the classic thing here. I'm going to roll on the die of anime genres. Whoa, and I'm going to hit the microphone with it. That's great. And I'm going to roll that. It has rolled on a genre. Let me pull up the list of genres. So, tell me in the chat, what did I roll? Whoever guesses the die roll first will get the Blu-ray. Nice, pristine copy of Thunderbolt. We'll see who gets it first. Not seeing it yet in the chat room. We'll see if somebody guesses the genre. And they will win this copy of Gundam Thunderbolt. I believe I reviewed this on the channel. My review was less than positive, to be honest, but that's just because of the characters and the situation and so forth. No one's got it yet. Just not my kind of story, you know. Also, I didn't realize it was a compilation, which doesn't help either. So it was a little hard to follow. So nope, I don't see it yet. Any other guesses as to the genre I rolled on the die? If not, this will go back into the vault for some other day. But yeah, this is up and available if somebody wants to go for it. I guess nobody wants Gundam. Maybe Mecha's not going to have a resurgence if there's this little interest in Gundam. That is so sad, so sad.
It'll be available for the next on-con.
There we go.
There you go.
So we'll see. No guesses, no one else? Still haven't seen the genre yet. We'll keep an eye out. This is let me just see, does it say? Can't be right. 70 minutes. 1080p high definition. Nope, not seeing it yet. Not seeing it. Bandai Visual. And man already has the Blu-rays.
Yeah, look, people have
Fair
it.
enough.
Wow.
Fair enough. Alright, well, since Captain Laser Eyes is the only one guessing, it's going to go to Captain Laser Eyes. So congratulations, Captain Laser Eyes. In case you were wondering, the genre was mecha, which only makes sense. Oops. Imagine that. That's right. Oops.
Where's Kismet?
It all makes sense. So, Captain Laser Eyes, please shoot me a message on Discord or email me or through YouTube, whatever you want to do. Congratulations, and I will shoot you this copy of Gundam Thunderbolt December Sky. So now it's your birthday. Happy birthday, Captain Laser Eyes. That's cool. I have another stack of giveaways over here for other times. We'll get there. We'll get to all of those. Message on Discord, perfect. Thank you very much. Discord's been pretty popular this week. In fact, we're going to get to that here in a second. And talk a little bit about that. Because we're going to talk about the news as well in a little bit. I want to bring up a topic that was asked on the Discord, on our Discord, which was an interesting question from Scottish Hippie, who, and I love that name, by the way, who was asking a question about the evolution of anime character designs over time. So let's get everyone in here to talk about this a little bit. Well, hello, gentlemen. Welcome back.
Hello.
Yes. So let's talk a little bit about this. Scottish Hippie wants to discuss thoughts about how anime character designs have changed over the years. Because I think some people got into anime at a time where they really loved the character designs, and then sometimes the dominant style shifts in a way they don't like. Or they love current designs, they don't love old character designs, or what have you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Again,
let's just pull out Kimigori Orange Road one more time.
Yeah.
Well, if you figure, you're the historian, Brent.
Yeah.
Didn't basically the character designs start with woodblock prints, and then developed up from that?
I mean, technically, they in a sense they started with like Blondie and and
no, not that far back.
I mean, technically, comics in Japan. If you want to go back to the comics,
Right.
it really started by mimicking Western style comics. So it was the Beetle Baileys of the the late 1800s, early 1900s. Really the inspiration for a lot of the early comic styles. But you're absolutely right that the visual style was also based on ukiyo-e prints and other things like that were the traditional Japanese styles, which had this kind of flatness to them.
Right.
This is very stylized aspect. And then obviously Osamu Tezuka came along and just kind of like, okay, we're all going to copy this guy. We're all going to follow that.
We're just going to revolutionize this whole thing.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, and I think certainly, you obviously can't avoid the reality that the modern current animation is leagues away from from Tezuka's time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Astro Boy compared with whatever the most recent, I'm Standing on a Million Lives.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I'm Standing on a Million Lives isn't even really that like revolutionary in any respect, but by comparison, it's a lot easier to watch than some of the Astro Boy stuff where it's you have to dial backwards in time to appreciate Astro Boy in its period.
Yeah.
Versus standing, your foot in the 21st century, trying to go, oh, wow, you didn't want to do a background for that?
Yeah.
You wanted to do a static? Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
So that's a marked change, and certainly, again, the 1970s, looking at part 1 of Megazone, which we just talked about, and the Macross style of character animation, mecha design, beautiful, wonderful. But character animation, you've gotten much more tropey with how the eyes and the color of the hair, that and the little, the I'm frustrated little cross on the forehead and the little sweat drop. You know what I mean? You've seen that shortcutting really develop. You could have used that with BD in part 2, where he's watching the gore and you see the sweat trickle. All you needed to do was put the sweat drop. Just draw that on his head, and then everything would have been explained.
Yeah. Exactly.
So those tropey shortcuts are extremely handy. They're a little, I think, overused, but it really does allow you to get a lot more information into your story.
Yeah.
Without having to actually say it. Cut
Totally.
the dialogue tightly.
Yeah, it's fascinating with just the movies we've been watching over the past few weeks from the early 80s, seeing the shift from naturalistic movement and naturalistic character designs to much more stylized movement and stylized character designs, where Horus, Prince of the Sun, obviously they are cartoony, for lack of a better word, characters, but they're meant to represent, human beings. Whereas the characters in Megazone feel much more like, oh, this is somebody that you're going to put on a sticker and put on your lunchbox or what have you. It's just been very, very visually distinctive, intentionally. It's interesting, and I think also on the other side of that coin, it's fascinating seeing how computer coloring and computer effects have allowed for a very different approach to visual design. One of the big differences between pre-digital and post-digital is just hair color, and seeing the ability to just do a gradient, every single time, which would have been impossible to do consistently back with ink and paint. And now there's just de rigueur. That's how you do things.
Right. Well, it's also interesting that the in-scene kind of things now. I just noticed it the other day with the Slime Tamer, the Kid is a Slime Tamer series.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's got all of the characteristics of what looks like hand-drawn, which is, we know it's not hand-drawn, it's all digital drawn. But in this one scene that I can think of, comes to mind, is you have the characters moving along next to a carriage, and the horses are 100% CGI, and they look 100% CGI, and it's like it's an oddly purposeful statement, considering the way that the rest of the thing is done, where it's like, okay, that's an interesting, I think it's kind of a funky way to play with the CGI, because we know you can do Sidonia no Kishi. You can do CGI, and Final Fantasy, any of those, you can CGI the hell out of stuff, and it's beautiful. So when you can take something that is digitally rendered, more traditional kind of show, and then have something that is visually absolutely different and made to be such, is an interesting way to play with the character design currently. And that's like, so I think that's an interesting sort of evolutionary element that's still in there.
Yeah. And it's one of the things that I think is happening it's clearly happening, is that one of the advantages of the isekai phenomenon is that a studio will do an isekai series today where they will do CGI horses for some of the scenes. Now they have CGI horses. So next season, when they do the next isekai series, they can just reuse those CGI horses for more of those scenes. And so they have these assets to share, and then they can share that with another studio and so forth and so on. So a lot of the stuff that in the past was hard to do is getting easier and easier to do because you don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Right.
Totally. But yeah, you're absolutely right, Manav, is that 3D CG animation has a long way to go before it becomes as acceptable as I don't know what I would say acceptable, but it is like hand-drawn. And to be clear, there's this belief that all modern anime is basically CGI, and it's still drawn. It's just drawn on a tablet, right? It's but it still just creates a very different thing, and it gets back to it was so weird for me the first time I saw it was clearly a tablet drawn character where they didn't connect the mouth lines. And like they're smiling and like there's a gap in the smile, and it's a very common thing now. Is that whenever they draw a mouth, there's usually a little gap in the mouth somewhere because it looks natural. Because when you're doing, when you're drawing things, it's a very natural thing. And you're like, it took more effort for them to draw those two things, whereas before it was just, we didn't quite get the line all the way through.
Right.
But it is a way of referencing the old 2D ink and paint way of doing things that just feels right. It just feels correct.
And I think certainly for CGI, you have people that are doing harder CGI in stuff because that is the thing they're doing. You know what I mean? It's like you can replicate far more 2D style with the digital assets that you have. Yeah. So that you kind of have to look at the way that CGI has penetrated things as not just we're sharing horses across different stories. It's also a very conscious effort at using CGI for its particular look and purpose. So that if you were trying to replicate 2D, that's a thing you can do. The assets are there to do that. Yeah. So that these things that are acceptable for CGI, it's them working in that way to get people on board with what they're doing with it, and it's not, it's stylistically very much a choice.
Would Girls in Panzer have been better if the tanks were all 2D drawing? Would have been different, right? It would have been a visual distinction thing, but it worked.
Right, and they're not like Reboot. You know what I mean? It's not like this weird kind of, what is it, Dire Straits, Money for Nothing?
Oh, yeah.
Not the one? You know what I mean? So it's not that kind of chunky, clunky looking 80s CGI.
Like Golgo 13.
Right. Yeah, okay. There you go. But it's got that element of drawing to it that it's not jarring visually. So that's what makes me think when I see things that are stand out kind of weird, I know there's a point and purpose to that because you don't have to do it that way. Yeah.
Totally. And completely agree with Manav. Land of the Lustrous is shining the way as to how to do CG, all CG in anime, because man, it's amazing. And Beastars, I want to know what they do after Beastars. Man, that's going to be bad.
Isn't there supposed to be a 2? There's supposed to be a 2 coming.
Yeah, they're doing season 2. Yeah.
Oh, please.
I was going to say, Beastars actually took me by surprise. As you guys know, I'm not completely there with CGI, just simply because it's. Yep. I don't feel it's gotten to that point yet. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But especially with the movie wavy arms when they're trying to stand still, I still don't understand that. But Beastars was actually surprisingly good. I only watched it because John, you loved it so much, so I was just like, okay, well, I'll give it a try, and it worked. And you know, like one of my favorite scenes is from the first episode where he goes from the door that he's supposed to be guarding, and he goes after the bunny.
Yeah, Haru.
And he just does that leap and roll kind of thing, and just the hold. And it was just, I was just like, what I liked about it was that I knew it was CGI and it was digital, but I didn't see it. I didn't feel it. I didn't see it. Whereas the most recent Ghost in the Shell, which was entirely CGI'd, and you know, I wasn't hep on it. It was just, you know, you can tell between the backgrounds and the character designs and things like that, and you know, it just wasn't working. But Beastars had definitely worked.
Yeah, Land of the Lustrous, they just nail it because because it's the aesthetic. It's what it's what you're figuring out how to make it all work.
Right.
Yeah. It was so weird watching Idolmaster for the first time. Because that was the first series I had seen where they did, where they cut between 2D animated characters and 3D animated characters for the dance sequences.
Oh, okay.
And obviously lots of animated done it since. It's probably not the first one to do it, but it was the first one to do it with budget, where, you know, they had replicated those 2D character designs so perfectly in the 3D that when they start dancing, you're like, yeah, this looks like that character. It doesn't feel weird and plasticky. It doesn't feel like we've lost fidelity. It's just a 2D character moving and singing and dancing in this one way, which is remarkable because, again, you can kind of do that in these dancing simulators and so forth.
Well, they did that with Love Live Sunshine. You have the more traditional sort of like 2D looking thing, and then they go to a song and dance sequence, and holy crap, did they do a great job with that? I mean, the fluidity of movement and the choreography with it. I'm like, wow, okay, yeah,
Blue Sub 6 tried to do a lot of CGI.
And I agree, it did not come out very well.
Now, Last Exile, I think they kind of figured that out.
Yeah.
Seems to
Last Exile was very interesting, and that's actually what drew me into it was the ship designs and use of the CGI there. That was,
well, it's all airships, so it has that kind of 20s, 30s era. So it has very rigid lines, very streamlined. So it was very effective for that approach. Very shiny. So again, you got to think about what you're doing. And then there's the Berserk CGI, which, again,
everybody seemed to hate. I don't know. Yeah, I never got a chance to see it. So
I've seen enough clips to be like, oh, I see what folks are complaining about.
Yeah, it just doesn't match up. It just doesn't. It just. I think the word used in the chat was jarring. It's very obvious. Yeah,
totally. But yeah, and it's weird because definitely anime character designs themselves have evolved over time. You look at those very rounded, cutesy, if you will, character designs of, say, Tezuka in the 60s, which you then get copied over in the 60s. In the 70s, you get the more angular sort of Mazinger Z style thing with the big shocks of hair and all that kind of stuff. The 80s, you get the Rumiko Takahashi, and the giant eyes, the glitter in the eyes and the glistening and all that stuff. And in the 90s, just all heck breaks loose. Things just get so incredibly stylized and so incredibly weird. The really pointy chins and all that stuff. Obviously I have a love for that era, but boy, were things weird.
They were entertaining.
They were entertaining.
Yes. Entertaining.
I would also argue. I would argue that the 90s saw the most variety of character designs, especially among popular anime, relative to other decades. Like when I think of anime of the 80s, I think of that, Meizou Koku, the Rumina Kanekashi style, a lot of those things, even into the mecha series, the Macross and such. But when I think of the 90s, I think of Jewel Beb Hunter Live, I think of Cowboy Bebop, I think of Outlaw Star, I think of just all sorts of different things. And it feels like they were really... There's just a lot of diversity of character design styles back then.
Right.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. That when you look at the 60s and you look at the 70s and you look at the 80s, you're just like, you can almost just see one panel for like a second, like a game show, and just go, that was from the 80s. That was from the 70s. You can definitely tell because as you're pointing out, there was maybe 2 or 3 styles per decade, and they all kind of mimicked each other. And then in the 90s, actually you made a really good point there. Compare Outlaw Star to Cowboy Bebop. They're 2 totally different looking things.
Made by the same studio, and I think the same year.
Yeah. But they're 2 totally different looking things. They're just drawn differently. The hair's different. There's a smoothness to Cowboy Bebop that's not in Outlaw Star.
Well, doesn't that sort of represent a generational thing that the people who grew up in the 70s with that stylistic look, by the time you get to the 90s, that it's time for them to, cast aside the old molds and start, fleshing out more of what they would like to have seen when they were kids?
It's more along the fact that those of us who grew up in the 70s just don't want to remember the 70s, so it just kind of shoved it away. It's just like in the back corner of our minds.
To quote James Lilacs, the low point of Western civilization. But
bell-bottom pants weren't the high point? Wait a minute. I've been grossly misled. Leisure suits were not in? Oh, wow.
And
then all this time.
And what's funny is like the 80s were also very experimental in their own way. You see lots of weird OVAs, weird concepts and such, especially in the late 80s. But I think just in terms of, again, just kind of the visual style of shows, the 90s had this weird diaspora of stuff. Partly because, the economy was going all to pieces and there was no money left and folks were just like, let's make a thing! Why not? Nobody's looking. So you just... Rain, exactly. So you get a lot of oddities in the 90s. And then the 2000s came along and everyone was like, let's be conservative. Let's be as gentle and relaxing and high school romance as we possibly can be. I think started to kind of swing back. I think
everybody loves a slice of life high school. Come on now.
Exactly. Especially when that's all you get for like 3 years. But
and now all the people are going isekai. All we get is isekai. These things they do happen.
Yeah. Exactly.
And in defense of Doro Hey Doro, I thought it was a brilliantly wacky approach to CGI for a show.
But I've not seen it, so
it's funky. You not something you should go in expecting it to be like Rembrandt. You know what I mean? You should kind of go in expecting it to be extremely odd.
Yeah.
And it's got a heck of a soundtrack, man. I love that soundtrack.
Cool. Yeah. I did see an interview with the studio behind that, and they said, we knew. Like, we very deliberately went in to do CGI because we wanted it to look visually, unlike anything else out there, and we were not trying to be typical CGI. So it was, it was meant to be kind of an assault on the senses. Because the manga is an assault on the senses, too.
That's where I think, Brent, you and Steve together would get a lot of the visuals that's going on in that. That it's got a lot of rich depth in that CGI.
I know I read, I think the first volume of Doro Hedoro.
Yeah, I don't know anything about this.
Yeah.
Don't worry about not knowing. It is purely. I mean, I didn't know either. I was scooting around. I saw this thing pop up, and I'm like, is it like Durara? I'm like, no. Is it the one with the guy who's the samurai who doesn't have like arms and he has to fight demons to get his body parts? I'm like, no, that's Dororo or something. I'm like, what the heck is this? And I watched it. I'm like, oh wow. First of all, let me buy the soundtrack. Second of all, let me keep watching this.
Wow, interesting, cool. I have to keep an eye out for that. Y'all hear that? And welcome to the latest anime news for the week ending November 21st, 2020. That's right. This week, a couple of well-known and well-loved creators teased new projects. Yay! During last weekend's Gunpla Expo Tokyo 2020, a producer from Sunrise revealed that Gundam creator Yoshiki Tomino is currently preparing not one, but 3 new projects for after he finishes the Gundam Reconquista in G compilation films. Apparently, Tomino will have more to say himself after some preparation, so we probably have to wait a little bit. The Gundam Reconquista films have 5 planned installments. The first opened in November 2019 and second in February of this year. The third is set to open next summer, so we have a while to wait. Manga creator Naoki Urasawa also teased a new project this week. In the author's comments of the most recent weekly Big Comic Spirits magazine, he commented, quote, "I'm making an anime! I hope to be able to show it to everyone soon," end quote. We hope so too. Urasawa has been making manga since 1981, best known for 20th and 21st Century Boys, Monster, and Pluto. His most recent series, Asadora, began in October of 2018, and will begin publication in English starting in January. And yes, several of his works have already been made into anime. We'll see. Pluto has been rumored for a while. We hadn't heard anything about it, so who knows. The Code Geass franchise also teased a new entry this week. The official Twitter account revealed that a new project in the series will be unveiled through a YouTube live stream on December 5th, so fans will have to keep an eye out for that event soon. The most recent entry in the series was the film Code Geass Lelouch of the Resurrection, which is producer described as Phase 1 of a 10-year plan for new content in the franchise because, of course, mecha. So a lot of new stuff potentially coming down the pike. Any of that stuff sort of catch your eye?
Yeah.
We're going to find out.
So I have a special place in my heart for Code Geass. I don't know why I like it as much as I do, but I do.
Okay.
So I'm looking forward to that. But 10 years, okay.
Yeah, that's a long.
I don't know how I feel about that. Urasawa, I love 20th Century Boys. That is amazing. I love the live action movies.
You've seen this? Cool.
Yeah, it's just so. I don't even know how to explain it. It's just a really dystopian kind of story, and it has all the the Ultraman kind of big kaiju robots, and then just all these just happenings going on, and they're just. And it's just this mystery that they're trying to solve, and it goes across generations. And it's about a small group of boys who used to play a game, and they have one book, and they used to write in the book about their adventures. And then they refined the book after many years after they grew up. And in the end, apparently this guy named Friend put in stuff that he's going to take over and destroy the world. And it kind of goes on from there. And they're trying to figure out who Friend is, and they believe it's a member of their own group that even back then, as a child, was deciding that I'm going to take over the world and just screw it up. So I'll be just curious to see what else he does. His stuff is usually very interesting. It's not, it's like almost its own genre. His stuff that he does.
Yeah. And if you like manga, he has a series called Naoki Urasawa no Manben, or Urasawa Naoki no Manben, where he goes and films other mangaka at work, and then talks to them about it, which is
interesting.
Very fascinating. But that's not all. If you order now, no wait. Fans of Haruhi Suzumiya and the Antics of the SOS Brigade have been eagerly awaiting next week's publication of The Intuition of Haruhi Suzumiya, the first new novel in the series in 9 years. This week, the official website for the series' anime adaptation had an update, teasing a new activity schedule for the SOS Brigade, as well as a voiced announcement from Haruhi herself announcing the new upcoming activity. The message on the website says, "This case ain't fiction, it's non-fiction. Something will start on November 25th. Knowing Haruhi, it's going to be a ride." Also included in this schedule is the announcement of a special live something from the fictional band Enoz to take place on November 28th. This is the band that Haruhi played in Season 1, the school band thing. To celebrate the release of the novel, Kadokawa's light novel recommendation site, Kimirano, is also running a special 8-day campaign to release the full novel series for free online, though only in Japanese, with 3 novels released at a time on various days remaining until the 27th. So, we've got something Haruhi coming.
I'm going to have to brush up on my Haruhi dance.
Yep.
Dang it.
Exactly.
I still have to watch. What's the series? What do I have to watch in order again?
Season 1, Season 2, and then the movie Broadcast Order.
Got it.
Broadcast Order.
And then I'll memorize the dance, and then I'll I'll put it on for you all to see, and you can be horribly aghast at what I do.
And here's the thing: the anime has not adapted all the light novels. There's plenty of content in the light novels not yet adapted, so there's plenty of room, in other words, for whatever they're going to adapt. And it's kind of curious to see where that goes, especially considering this was Kyoto Animation's kind of breakout anime. There's a lot of opportunity there for them, and folks have been wondering, when are they going to go back and finish the rest of and get more of the story and explain what's going on here? Because there are plenty of mysteries. There are whole characters in the light novel series that have never showed up in the anime. Yeah, because they just haven't gotten to it.
Oh, come on, hurry up. Hustle up, let's go.
Yep.
Get it together.
Especially considering what they've kind of revealed about some of the well, anyway. Yay, poor Haruhi. In-person conventions and events may have been a distant memory for quite a while now, but as of this week, manga fans in Japan might have a real event to look forward to. It was announced that Comic Market 99 will be held at its usual Tokyo Big Sight venue May 2nd through 5th of 2021, though with significant restrictions in place. The biannual doujinshi and manga event usually draws upwards of 200,000 attendees per day, but capacity restrictions will limit this event to only tens of thousands per day. So the staff thinks it's extremely likely that a lottery will determine who will be able to participate. Though the lottery will likely determine the final selection of participants, all general attendees will have to purchase participation certificates to even be eligible. Attendees must properly wear masks when attending, and also requested to use the government's COVID-19 contact tracing app. It was also noted that people who live in prefectures with heightened COVID precautions, as well as those countries Japan isn't currently issuing visas to, won't be able to attend at all. The planning committee also noted they are considering projects for the 45th anniversary of the event in December, using the Air Comiket concept that it used for last summer's event. So it's always nice to get when for Comiket to say, yes, we're coming back, we're doing this thing. It's obviously disappointing that it's not going to be the usual, body-crushing typical event. But I think it's what it has to be, right?
Well, the interesting part too is like that little thing where the prefectures that are particularly hard hit, that they're going to restrict those.
Yeah.
Soon as this announcement was made, everybody and their brother is like, "Oh, I had this guy I went to school with in like third grade, and he lived in like such and such a place. I'm going to call him. Can I use your address? I just need to send like some correspondence from there, if that's cool." And I like the fact that you have to buy a certificate to take a chance to get in. Mm-hmm. So they make the money no matter whether you go or not. I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool in a really tricky, devious way.
Yes.
I mean, granted, that is the typical model for a lot of events in Japan. So,
That you buy a chance for a lottery? Do you have to pay?
Oh,
you have to pay then once you win?
Oh, no. If you're a fan of an idol, what they'll do is for their next concert, they will have random tickets in CDs.
Oh.
So you have to buy, actually not even tickets, you buy coupons. There are coupons in the album. You have to buy the album. Each coupon is a chance for a to go to an event where you get to stand in line for one of the tickets. So you buy like 40 CDs to get enough of the things to ensure that you can actually go to the event, and hope that you get there early enough to actually get one of the tickets for their concerts. Yeah.
Oh, for the love of...
So I'm thinking of the previous Otakons I've been to, trying to get into the AMV or whatever the new movie is, and having that one person in front of me who is like always counting the people ahead of them, you know, then saying something weird to the effect of like going, "If I don't get in, there's gonna be a riot." And you just want to go over and just go, "No, there won't. There won't be any riot. I'm gonna get in. You'll be fine. You'll be fine."
Mm-hmm.
Well, this is
but think about the plus,
interesting,
though.
And that must be why eBay has such a trade in like a lot of weird CDs. Like, I'm gonna keep one, and then the spare one will be in the prime area in the house that's kept pristine, and I'm selling 38 others. Why the hell did I do that?
Yeah.
Well, it does kind of lessen the amount of fanboy funk at these.
True.
Events. If they go from 100,000 down to
it is worth it for that.
Only 20,000. And speaking of like bodies crushed together, the unwashed masses.
Yeah.
It's just kind of like. I wanted to be here as much as you do, but I actually woke up early so I could take the shower before I get here. Because,
I wonder how weird it's going to be being in Tokyo Big Sight when you're one of 10,000 people.
Yeah. It'll be like a holiday vacation.
Exactly.
200,000 people.
Well, you know what it's going to be like? I'll tell you what it's going to be like. It's going to be like the Otakon after the riots. That's what happened, because the previous Otakons were hitting upwards to 30 to 33,000, which maxed out the BCC here. And then the riots happened, and it dropped, I think, if I remember correctly, like 23,000. So there's 7,000 people that weren't there.
Yeah.
So it dropped down to about 23,000. And you could tell just like that, just walking in. Like, I could walk around, I was like, God, this is like 2004. When nobody was
I remember
coming,
those days.
And there was just plenty of room and all this. Or it'd be like you were going to, like, how jam packed this BCC was, and then you go to the DC convention center, and the thing is so large and it's so big and so roomy that you don't feel that claustrophobia. So it must be like. It must be a dream for them, because usually they're probably like, jostling around the camp and whatnot, and then you just have room to just be able to stop it.
Well, here's the other thing. Like, when you're one of 200,000 other people, and you want to get the latest, Fate Dojinshi from whatever, you better get there quick, because they're going to sell out in an hour.
Yeah.
Yep.
They might not anymore. If you get in... right?
You get it.
You're going to get it. So the lucky ones are going to have pick of the litter for so many of these Ojinshi, because, there's no reason for the circles to, only print 10 copies. they might as well put
Right.
pretty normal stock. So that's going to be really exciting for those folks who get in and suddenly, oh, I have a chance to get that thing.
And then they're going to realize the curse of the otaku. I don't have enough money to buy everything.
Yeah.
You will never have. Yeah. Well, that's the other
But there will be a very lively trade in Jojinshi afterwards.
Well, I guess the tables are 6 feet, aren't they? I'm wondering about capacity for the vendors.
Ooh.
I mean, I'm assuming.
I would bet that they're going to do one every other space.
But I mean, I believe a typical
table would be 8 feet.
Yeah, but you typically have multiple people. So I guess what they'll probably do is say, it'll be the same capacity in terms of number of circles, but you can only have like one person in your booth at a time.
Yeah. You can't have.
All those folks.
Dang. Which will really bottleneck a lot of things if you have a ton of people who want that particular piece.
Yeah.
Right.
Because you only have one person trying to trade things and do things. You don't have a helper.
Yeah. Yeah, that's going to be tough. Especially when that person is the artist or whatever, because they're there to shake hands. Well, not shake hands anymore, but say hi.
Yeah.
Hello, yes, I do this. It's very nice to meet you. It's great. Yeah, we'll...
Or they could do the Trump thing and they can just grab a whole bunch of stuff and just go... and just throw it into the crowd.
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
Just have at it.
That works.
Because,
I'll bet that's going to happen.
Yeah, it works.
Well, what I'm also curious to see is what the major company presence is going to be, like the booths for Katakawa and all those companies. I wonder what they'll do because again, you can't have a bazillion employees there, but you can have a presence. So why not?
Yeah.
Who knows?
Automated booths where it's just a little kiosk with a screen. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome to Katakawa. Please press 1.
Your
Para
figurine.
inglés, número 2.
That'd be pretty awesome. Now, in the near future, a group of people will be able to say they studied anime and manga in college, and it won't just be a joke. Kaishi Professional University announced this week that its new anime and manga department... Oops. I should switch over. There we go. Now you can see what I'm seeing on the screen. The Minister of Education, Culture, Sport, Science, and Technology, that's a mouthful, officially approved the creation of the department on the 16th, so it's scheduled to launch in April of 2021 with a capacity of 80 students, that's 80. Applications to the program will open on December 1st, and the first entrance exam will be held on December 19th. So, yay, college entrance exams. The students will learn the theory and practice of creating manga and anime from leading creators in the field, including professional animators and anime directors, manga artists and illustrators, and game creators, as well as animation and manga researchers. The private Kaishi Professional University just opened in April of this year, and also features a business creation department and an information studies department. I've got to ask, no disrespect intended, but why do you think they're doing this?
Money. I mean, it's a private university. So, not knowing what their standards are, but, if you're in this for a profit, perhaps you're targeting an audience of people who that might be their best chance of actually getting a degree. I don't mean that in an insulting kind of way, but it's like they're not going to be the ones that are going to be doing physics. They're not going to be rocket scientists. That this might be something that's sort of in the media communications kind of field that might be enough for them to come out the other side with some kind of degree of something.
True.
Like ethnomusicology.
Yeah. clapping for credits. Hey, here's an A. I would like to be wrong in that and hope that this represents like a real change in the opinion of the world of manga and anime, and that really now it's like, nope, for all the years that people make fun of this is full on legit. So let's make this a career track that's totally, credited, and you can put the cat skin on the wall, and people will be like, yes, I am proud of this thing that I've done, and bring that out from the smoky back alleyways.
and to be clear, there are like manga and anime like crash courses. You can go and you can do a 3-month thing at a frankly some classroom in some building somewhere that you pay for, but it's the equivalent of like a coding boot camp, right? Where you're gonna sit down, you're gonna learn all this stuff, and look at what happened with Cal Arts when Disney invested in that animation program, and we got John Lasseter, we got Tim Burton, all sorts of great lights out of that program. Hey, it can work.
Well, it just again, like in the back of my head is a little scene playing when Krusty the Clown needed money, so he founded the Krusty the Clown Clown Company. And it was just like a horrible scam. And so I hope it's not like that.
Yeah.
Somebody just stands in front of the class and goes, "This is manga. They are pictures. You draw them. Thank you. As soon as your check clears, you're all going to get a diploma tonight." Like, what? Hopefully it's not that.
Yeah. Definitely.
There are scams like that. When I worked for the opera, we actually had people who would be voice teachers and help people make their audition tapes and say that this is what you would send to opera houses to try and get parts to audition. And some of this caterwauling that you would hear is just like just horrendous. Like somebody singing clearly in their shower because they think it's a good way to have a studio. So you hear this stuff and it's just like, and I had to get up from my desk one point and just go, "What is this?" And the woman there who had the luxury of listening to all this bad singing said, "This is what happens when voice teachers are just doing it for the paycheck and they need to make rent. They just come in, they bring somebody in and just say for 4 hours a week, or total of 4 hours a week, and then after a month just go, okay, you're ready, let's make an audition tape and I'm done with you, your check cleared, bye-bye." And so I feel you, John. It's like part of it is just like, oh, that stick figure, it looks just like a Zaku. Yes, you nailed it perfectly. Now go and try and find a job. Good luck.
Which I think is why when they announced it, they're like, we're going to have directors in here, we're going to have animators in here, we're going to have folks from the industry, so there's at least that much oversight.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
I just, like Steve saying, like, "Student A, come into my office. You are brilliant. This is the greatest thing I've ever seen. You're ready to go. Student B, please come in. You're great. You're brilliant. This is the most wonderful thing I've ever seen. On you go. Student C, wash, rinse, repeat."
You guys are so cynical.
Yes, we're jaded.
And I cannot keep my mic up.
Back when I was promised to be the lead voice actor in Robotech, and it got ripped away from me. I am jaded.
Clearly.
Even though I was only 14.
Also this week, some news items that we'll cover. We may not have anything to say about it, but we will see. Other things worth mentioning. Akita Shoten's Champion Red magazine revealed this week that a new manga is coming in the Saint Seiya franchise. The new Saint Seiya Meioiden Dark Wing manga will debut in the magazine's next issue, December 19th, with Kenji Saito doing the writing and Shinshu Ueda doing the illustration. The story will center on, who else? An ordinary high school boy who suddenly wakes up in the land of the dead. The original Saint Seiya manga ran from 86 to 1990 and inspired, obviously, a number of anime series, films, OVAs, spin-offs, etc. Another week, another fantasy light novel turned anime. Kadokawa announced that Zappon and Yasumo's Banished from the Hero's Party slice-of-life light novel series is inspiring a TV anime adaptation. The story follows Red, who used to be a member of the powerful Hero's Party that saved the world from the evil Demon Lord until he was kicked out by one of his comrades. His new goal becomes to live a simple life on the frontier and open an apothecary shop, but keeping his past a secret is harder than he thinks, especially when a beautiful adventurer from his past shows up and asks to live with him, because that's how that works. It began serialization online in October of 2017, so it's relatively new. But the 7th volume was published last summer, so they've been cranking them out. An anime adaptation is also in the works for Kanojo mo Kanojo. It'll debut sometime in 2021. This will be Hiroyuki's 4th work to receive an anime after Aho Girl, The Comic Artist and His Assistants, and Dojin work. The neo-romantic comedy launched on March 4th and centers on first-year high schooler Naoya. He and his longtime crush begin dating, and his life is full of happiness until one day another beautiful girl confesses to him, because again, that's how that works. He tells her he has a girlfriend already, but suggests they talk to her about him dating them both at the same time. That is not how it works. The girls then hit it off, and while the original girlfriend is understandably reluctant at first, she eventually agrees. Yeah. Boys Life manga. Sasaki and Miyano is also getting an anime adaptation, with more details to be revealed in next month's monthly Comic Gene issue on December 13th. The story is about a feisty BL comic fan and his delinquent senior Sasaki. It's also inspired a novel adaptation, interestingly enough, plus a spin-off manga. A new anime was also announced from Comic Festa this week. This will adapt Iburo's Jimmy Hen manga. It'll premiere on TV and the Comic Festa website on January 3rd. It follows a relationship of two office co-workers. The girl, Reina, seems like the plainest woman at the company when in her work clothes, but becomes a stunning beauty when she dresses up outside of work. Like previous Comic Festa anime, it will have 2 versions, the normal on-air edition and a premium edition on the website. Finally, in anime news, the Zetsumetsu Kigushun Endangered Species character brand is inspiring a net anime. That is a sequence of words I did not expect us to string together today. It'll premiere on Nico Nico Doga in December. It focuses on the more than 3,000 endangered species in the world, and also includes a short net anime episode on YouTube with a manga serialized on Twitter. A creative unit from Katakawa and Geek Pictures called Kgi Mania have been planning and developing the character brand. Now, the cover designer for the long-running Koro Koro Comics manga magazine received a Guinness World Record this week as the longest-running cover designer for a children's magazine. Tarichi Sasaki has been working on the Koro Koro covers, hard to say, for 34 years, since January 1986. The magazine, whose target audience is elementary school boys, began in 1977 as a place to publish Doraemon, which gives you an idea. In his response, Sasaki fervently thanked the editorial staff and commented, quote, "My parents gave me a strong body that's lasted for 74 years. How can I extend this record? I'm going to keep doing this till I go senile," end quote.
That's awesome.
Finally, some sad news this week. Prolific voice actor Kirby Morrow passed away unexpectedly this week at the age of only 47. He worked as a stage and screen actor and also voiced in many anime series, including Goku in the Ocean Dub of Dragon Ball Z, Troa Barton in Mobile Suit Gundam Wing, and Miroku in Inuyasha, which he just recently reprised in the currently airing Yashahime Princess Half Demon. His family addressed his fans in the announcement, saying, quote, "Kirby was a blessed and talented individual who brought joy to so many, but thrived off all your love and friendship. He lived for it, and it fueled him every day. Rest in peace, Kirby Morrow." Always tough to hear, but
47. I mean,
47. Yeah, that's not old.
No, it is not.
Yeah.
Because I will always associate his voice in Yasha. That's one of those things where how somebody's voice, the voice actor, is the role.
Yeah.
And they do the job. Like was it Steve Blum?
Yeah.
With
Spike
Siegel. Yeah. That's when you think of it, that's what you hear. For me, from Moroku, that's kind of like think of the character. That's the voice that I hear.
Yeah.
And that's just really, really kind of tragic. What was it that he died of?
I don't know.
We know
it hasn't been revealed.
Yeah, say the article I saw it earlier this week. I think ANN had it, and it just said he had passed.
Mm-hmm.
Really elaborate.
All right, keep taking my meds. That's what I'm
I meant to mention when we were talking about Megazone, the English dub, and I I don't know whether it's 1 or 2. I just saw a little footnote on it, but Vic Mignogna did Shogo's voice.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which I was like, Vic? Really?
It took me a moment to figure that one out. I was just like, why do I know that voice? Why do I? And it's one of those things. It's just like you're just like, what? Okay, I had to stop and then go.
Well, same. I'm just like, why do I know that? I'm like looking through the credits. I'm like, oh, that's why. I got you.
And just realizing that, I wonder if he had rent due or something.
Yeah, there are a couple of pretty well-known anime voice actors in it. The English dub. Yeah. So,
What is the appeal of Saint Seiya? I don't really get it. I've tried watching it. I've watched the famous episode with all the stairs. It just, it's not bad. It's not bad. It's not like I hate it or anything. I just don't get the popularity of it. Like, I just don't understand what that is.
Mm-hmm.
Like, where in the collective consciousness where everyone say, "Oh, this is something," So I have no idea what that's about.
I can't help you. I think it's also one of those things where it's massive in Japan.
Yeah.
So it's there is certainly fandom over here. People like it, but that really drives it. I think it's because it sort of combines Super Sentai with sort of traditional anime tropes, and it's one of the earlier anime to do that. So kind of feeds off of that kind of type of show. But yeah,
I've seen a ton of merch for it, and I have no idea what it is. Yeah. I've never seen any discussion about it, particularly that somebody has recommended or not recommended. So
I'll tell the story. When I was in Japan in 2012, wow, brain fart.
Never been there. What's that? What's
Akihabara.
That down like?
In Akihabara, as I was walking around, I saw they were setting something up out on the sidewalk outside one of the big stores, and they revealed it. They were doing a big Saint Seiya thing, and they had life-size Saint Seiya outfits, the full gold armor, in like 5 booths there, and just crowds. People were just blown away. It was huge. And they were gorgeous. I mean, obviously, they were, incredibly well made and so forth. But it's like, that's the kind of scale of fandom they do, where, we're going to do an event, so we're going to commission somebody to make 5, full-size suits of armor to represent this thing, because that's how big this thing is. Wow. It's also probably one of those things where, again, like Doraemon, like Crayon Shin-chan, whatever, if you grew up and it was on television, it just sort of seeped into you.
Right. Yeah.
So, but yeah.
What do you want to bet those suits of armor went to very specific shops at very specific places
I'm sure.
as displays?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Like the Rem statue.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Bell Dandy statues. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'll buy it.
Statues.
I'll buy it. There is
no room in my apartment.
There's a new kind of brand style thing, a 3D printer that is a 12-inch cube print area for $500. We could print a Rem statue for you.
Things I should not have.
Exactly. Yeah.
I have room for it. I mean, I can get rid of furniture.
That's the thing.
Don't need that bad.
It's like this big. It's not huge. It's like 1.5 feet or so, 2 feet, on the side. And I saw a video of something. Yep, print's great.
$500. That's
$500.
it.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Boy, is that technology just snowballed downwards in price. It's amazing.
Wow.
Yeah,
it's like Moore's law for 3D printers.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing.
Yeah.
And I also have to check to see, because the technology. The nice thing is now with 3D printers, they've got the basic specs sort of nailed down. So you're going to get a heated build plate. You're going to get probably a touchscreen interface, so you're not fiddling with weird little dials or whatever. So, as long as you've gotten it, and it looks like the design is solid, because there are now, like, the reason people know this is effective is that there are, like, 5 different Chinese clones of it, all for sale on Amazon, all for the same price. Because what that means, and that's not a slight, it means that this is easy and effective to replicate with off-the-shelf components. And so, clearly the design works, right? So, yeah.
Can you use a 3D printer to print a 3D printer? Are they self-replicating?
Not yet. No. A little hard to do that just yet. It's hard to replicate circuitry on a 3D printer just now.
Plastic circuitry. It looks right. It just doesn't work.
Although they have those.
Brilliant copy.
They do have circuit printers. So you can definitely 3D print circuits. Because it's just metal. Or it's not even metal. It's just like conductive, stuff. So just heat that up and it's like soldering. But,
so allow me to go back in time to my 15-year-old self.
Yeah.
Steve, don't worry about the cell phones. Don't worry about the internet. What's internet? 3D printer. Save up $500. Just keep $500 in your account at all time. And when it becomes available, just get it. You'll understand. And then come back to the future.
Don't ask questions.
Yep.
Just do it. Oh my god.
This is why I tell people
things I should not have.
This is why I tell people, if you want to get into 3D printing, get into it now, because the technology is only going to be better in a year, 2 years, 3 years. So you'll know what you're doing when those things come out. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm 3D printing a thing for my boss right now. It's like a Christmas gift. It's one of those things where I'm like, if I bought a 3D printer now, there's no way I'd be ready for Christmas. But because I have I know what I'm doing, I can, do all the kind of stuff to get it ready. So, that kind of stuff. In fact, there might be something that will show up on these shows in the next few weeks that I'm also working on 3D printing wise. It'll be kind of a fun experiment. We'll see. But yeah, that's that. This is also a week for anime history.
Aha!
We can talk about real quick. Let's transition over to that. Welcome to This Week in Anime History, where we talk about all the anime events that happened this week in anime history. And today we're going to talk about the premiere of the first Ghost in the Shell movie in Japan, which was an adaptation, obviously, of the single volume manga of the same name by wow, I'm blanking on that. But directed by Mamoru Oshii, who already had quite a reputation in Japan for doing thoughtful work, kind of experimental anime, etc. And Ghost in the Shell was sort of this perfect storm of a lot of Oshii's desires and interests all coming together. It has cool tech. It has questions about the nature of humanity and about reality and all these things, and manages to combine a lot of exciting action set pieces, or several exciting action set pieces, with some really ruminations on what's going on. It was a really, really big deal, especially in America when it came out, and in the West. It came out pretty quickly in the West, mainly because it was partially funded by Manga Entertainment, the American, or the Western licensor, particularly their UK branch. They literally put money in for this adaptation when they heard it was going out, which is why there's a Manga Entertainment logo on this thing, and which is why that's where you find it, because Manga Entertainment owns the Ghost in the Shell movie. Like, that is a thing they have. And granted, they've done a good job of keeping it in print and so forth and so on. But yeah, this is a really big deal that got a lot of attention internationally. It did the art house circuit. And got a lot of folks surprised for a film that was very much aimed at an older audience, very much aimed at adults, and included a lot of things, and was cyberpunk at a time when cyberpunk was still innovating, was still a new voice, was still a fresh voice in things, and asked a lot of things about the ubiquity of technology, which, boy, that's remained a question in our lives ever since. It was sort of a really, really big deal. Also a big deal because it came along right when anime was booming in the West. And so it became this thing that a lot of... it really created a lot of anime fans, frankly, in North America and so forth, because here was a thing aimed at that older audience that could now buy it, could now buy products and buy material, and really helped to found the North American anime market in its own small way. Really, really big deal. And that's what happened this week in anime history. Have you guys seen the original Ghost in the Shell?
I have. I own it. I have seen it way too many times. No, seriously, I really, really love that movie. And the funny thing is I did not even see it when it came out.
Really?
It wasn't, that it was on my radar, but it wasn't something that I was going out of my way to see in 1995. I was still, doing college things, not majoring in anime or manga. But,
you missed the boat, Steve.
I totally missed the boat. But once I did watch it, which probably would have been, I think, mid 2000s. After I think I watched the second season of Ghost in the Shell first and fell in love with it. When I watched it. And I was like, or not second season, but the first season of Ghost in the Shell, and fell in love with it.
Standalone complex or whatever.
Yeah, standalone. And then I watched the movie, and I was just like, it was like I had an Akira moment.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I was just like, I was just blown away by it. And so I've gone through about 2 or 3 DVD copies. I'm on my third. That's how much I watch it and find new stuff with it every time. And it's just, I just can't get enough of that movie. It's just, I would say it's probably one of my favorite Oshii movies. Definitely. But, and again, and also at that time, it's funny that you bring up Cyberpunk. That's actually what I was reading at that time. So I was reading a lot of William Gibson. Of course, Blade Runner has always been a personal favorite of mine.
Right.
So all those tropes. So when you read this like literature and stuff, and then you see an anime about it. Your normal anime is normally about like mecha, slice of life, or these other kinds of things. And this pops up, and you're just like, it speaks to me, and you're just like, oh, it's the best thing ever. And it's been the best thing ever for like the past 20 years or so.
Yep.
Yeah. Which I, having said that now, I just realized that A, I need a walker, and B, I can't believe it's been 20 years.
Yeah. John, how about you?
I have only ever seen bits and parts of Standalone Complex.
Okay.
Thanks to Toonami late night. And again, it's another one of those where I saw the Tachikomas and I'm like, oh, this is kind of funky. What are those? And then time goes by, and then the Major's talking with her boss about some political intrigue thing. I'm like, okay, I missed something. Then I watched something else. And there's some big hulking dude like Dolph Lundgren with little white round eyes. I'm like, I'm really out to sea here. I'm really not sure what's going on. It seems really cool, and I'm just not really sure what's going on.
That is a TV show that evolves.
Yes, it does.
It is dense, definitely.
And if you're not with it, you're against it, and that ain't gonna work.
Yep, exactly. It's an interesting film. I did not like Ghost in the Shell much when I first watched it. Mainly because I didn't realize what it was. I thought it was an action movie. Which it's not really. But once I kind of made my peace with its approach to things, I'm like, I see where you're going with that. Also, the manga's better. Nah, that's actually not true. It's actually not true in this case.
A little bit different.
Yeah,
gonna start this fight, are we? True fans will read the manga.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay. Here you go.
With all the weird. Who is the Masamune Shiro? There we go.
Shiro.
Yeah. I mean, he went his own direction artistically after Ghost in the Shell came out, so that's a whole other thing. He ended up, he did more of a pin-up kind of anyway. Which is kind of sad, but that's how you make your money, because that's, all right, well, I have a question for you all.
What did we learn on the show tonight, friends?
Perfect. We got that in one. I learned. Actually, I didn't learn this tonight, but it certainly was pulled together for me that some anime need a lot more material than is actually there, and anime directors shouldn't think we're smarter than we actually are.
Wow. How should I feel about that statement? You say I not smart? Me not laugh.
Throw us a bone! Throw us a bone, creators. I also learned there's plenty of new anime coming, which is a good thing.
There's more Haruhi. I learned there's more Haruhi.
I learned that I should not have said anything about the Haruhi dance. That may or may not be a thing.
Okay, all right, fair enough.
I don't know, if you film it and put it up on your channel, I'm sure there will be people who will watch it.
Yep.
Sad, desperate people. But
okay. Especially if you dress up as Harry.
But what else did I learn? I learned that some anime need whiskey to get through. I've learned that sometimes you watch an anime that is so different and confusing and making your head hurt, and you don't like any of the characters, and there's things about, and the only thing you like about it is the mecha, that you are forced to reevaluate anime in general. So you decide that, to reinforce my love of anime, you go back into Fun Animation and you watch the first 3 episodes of the Tenchi Muyo OVA.
Wow.
And then you go and you watch, this really absurd anime called Panty and Stocking and Garter Belt.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And you watch that and you go, and you're cleansed of...
Panty and Stocking should not be a cleansing anime. I'm just going to put that out there. That's a very odd situation to be in.
But it took the taint of Megazone 23 off my
Yeah, it'll certainly change up what you're doing, for sure.
I have also learned that I'm excited about the new Gias. I'm excited about the new stuff from Urasawa, the 20th Century Boys, who, for those of you out in the chat room, if you've never read the manga or seen the live action movie, actually there's 2 parts to the live action movie. Wow. Please, by all means,
That's the thing. Buy the thing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Please read it. Please watch it, because it's not going to be like anything that you've seen before, and it's highly, highly entertaining. And I've also learned that I'm going to have to somehow find the soundtrack to Megazone 23, because other than the mecha scenes of it, the music is actually pretty good.
I have it. It's available on iTunes.
There we go.
I may have to get it.
Yeah, I went and got that and part 1, part 2 soundtrack.
Okay.
And boy, it's like it's like going back to the 80s.
Can imagine.
Which you realize after you buy it, you're like, wow. You start listening to it, and you're like, oh, doesn't just remind me of the film. It reminds me of other things. It's like, oh, this is awesome. Oh, wow. Yeah, the 80s kind of sucked. Well, now I'm sad. I learned that I'm getting my PhD in manga and anime. So all I have to do is write a sufficiently yen-heavy check, and it should be in the mail in 6 to 8 weeks.
There we go. The great thing about COVID is you can do online learning. So you'll get all of your materials online, and then you'll just take them, and you'll know it all. See?
No, I'll just write the big check.
Okay, fair enough.
I'll do the Lori Loughlin thing or whatever it was, where she tried to get her daughter into college. I'll just write a big check and be like, here you go. Here's $100 American. Name of the wing after me.
There we go.
Free doctorate right here.
There we are. All right. I think that'll do it for us for this week. Thank you all very much for being around. It has been great as always. Thank you, chat, for being here.
Good seeing everybody again.
Absolutely. We'll be back next week with more. Next week's anime we'll be talking about is Project Echo.
Ooh.
The sort of parody sci-fi. And it's all sorts of things. We'll have a lot to say about Project Echo next week, I'm sure.
Yeah.
There's a lot to talk about.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, boy. So that'll be fun. If you guys are interested in that, it is around. I'm pretty sure it's available streaming as well. Thank you all so much. Have a great one. See you next week.
Bye, everybody. Johnny.
Bye.